Hey guys, it's story time with Bailey. You see Bailey up here sitting by the window? He likes to sit up on the top of the couch by the window. All right, last time we finished with chapter 3, and chapter 4 is called Gladys. Remember, Gladys is the cafeteria worker. Mrs. Gutzman, Mrs. Gladys Gutzman, where are you? I hollered. It's me, it's Junie B. Jones. I looked all around me. There was a long counter with children pushing trays. Did anyone see Mrs. Gutzman? I asked the children. Does anyone know her? My friend said she's right here in this kitchen, but I don't see her. I hollered her name even louder. Mrs. Gutzman, Mrs. Gladys Gutzman. And then all of a sudden, a lady came hurrying around the corner, and good news, it was her. It was Mrs. Gladys Gutzman. I ran and hugged her very tight. Mrs. Gutzman, I'm so glad to see you, I said. Mrs. Gutzman hugged me back. Junie B. Jones, I'm glad to see you too, she said. I smiled up at her. She was wearing her same big white apron from last year. Whoa, just look at you, Mrs. Gutzman, I said. You didn't change a bit. I patted her apron. You didn't even change your clothes, apparently, I said. Mrs. Gutzman laughed. She was wearing plastic mitts on her hands. Plus also she was wearing a hairnet. Hey, I remember those things from last year, I said. You told me that you wear plastic mitts and a hairnet whenever you touch food, remember? You said that was called good hygiene. 'Cause mitts and a hairnet protect our food from dirty germs and hairs. Mrs. Gutzman made a face. Are you sure that's the way I put it? She asked. I skipped all around her in a circle. Hey, Mrs. Gutzman, now that you found me, you can start bringing cookies to my room again. I held up one finger. I'm in room 1. This year, I said. Room 1 comes earlier in the alphabet than room 9, and so now that you know where I am, when can you bring me cookies, Gladys? Mrs. Gutzman did a chuckle, and then she leaned down next to me and she patted my arm, and she said don't call her Gladys. After that, Mrs. Gutzman explained all about snacks. She said that first graders don't get snacks like kindergarten kids do. On account of first graders get cookies with their school lunches. I did a frown at that news. Yeah, what about the children who bring their lunches, Mrs. Gutzman? Where's our cookies, huh? 'Cause today everybody got a cookie except for me and Sheldon. Mrs. Gutzman didn't answer my question. Instead, she raised her head and she looked behind me, and that's when I heard my teacher's voice. Junie B. Jones, he said kind of loudish. Exactly what do you think you're doing? I spun around. Mr. Scary's eyes looked annoyed at me. Why did you get up from the table, Junie B? He asked. What's the story here? Everyone was staring. I did a gulp. And then I squeezed my eyes closed real tight, and I tried to think of the story here. Well, let's see, I said. First I was eating my brought lunch, and everyone else was eating their bought lunch. And so that's how come I was the first one finished, and then I was just sitting there, and I spotted Herb's sugar cookie. And I really, really wanted that thing. And good news, Herb shared. And so then that delicious cookie reminded me about Mrs. Gutzman. And what do you know? Herb and Jose said she was right here in this exact kitchen. So I jumped up from the table and I ran to say hello, I said. After that, I looked up at Mrs. Gutzman kind of nervous and I waved my fingers. Hello, I said real soft. Hello, she said back. Mr. Scary shook his head. No, I'm sorry, Junie B. I know Mrs. Gutzman has enjoyed seeing you, but you can't just get up from the table and run wherever you please during lunch, he said. Mrs. Gutzman nodded. Mr. Scary's right, Junie B, she said. I'm very happy to see you, but you do have to learn to follow the school rules. I did a sigh. Yeah, only I really, really wanted to find you, Mrs. Gutzman, I said, because I missed you very much. Mrs. Gutzman tapped on her chin. Maybe I have an idea. Maybe if you promise to follow the rules, you can come back tomorrow and help me in the kitchen. Would you like that, do you think? My eyes got big and wide at her. Are you kidding, Mrs. Gutzman? I said, is this some kind of joke? She smiled again. Nope, she said. It's no joke. We let children help us in the kitchen quite often. If it's okay with your teacher, I'll give you a permission slip to take home to your parents. I pulled on Mr. Scary's arm. Say it's okay, please, 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 I begged. Mr. Scary didn't answer right away. Instead, he ran his fingers through his hair and he thought and thought. And then finally he said it. Mr. Scary said, "It's okay." I clapped and danced and twirled. "I can do it, Mrs. Gutzman," I said. "I can come over and help you in the kitchen." "Excellent," said Mrs. Gutzman. And then she reached behind the counter and she handed me a permission slip. And that is not all, because she reached back there one more time and she pulled out a pair of brand new plastic mitts. "Here," she said, "these are for you. You can wear them around your house tonight and get used to them." I did a gasp at those wonderful things. "Thank you, Mrs. Gutzman. Thank you, I said. "I've always wanted some of these thingamajigs." After that, I put them on my hands, very thrilled, and I waved goodbye to Mrs. Gutzman. "See you," I said. "See you tomorrow." And then I walked back to my lunch table with Mr. Scary, and I followed the rules for the rest of the day. Okay, that was the end of the chapter. How do you think Junie B is going to do in the cafeteria helping Mrs. Gutzman? Think about that. Chapter 5 is called Practicing. See you next time.